Welcome into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. All right, folks. I know a lot of you think you are true crime sleuths out there, that you can solve almost anything that we throw on this program. Here's the deal on today's program. I'm going to guarantee you that today we have a case that, well, let's just say, I don't think you can. I really don't think you can. We're going to welcome back Caitlin Rother today in a book that I guarantee you she has come up with a case that, let's just say, is darn near impossible for you to solve. The name of the book is an excellent one. It comes out a week from today. It's called Down to the Bone. It's about the case of the McStay family in California. And I had the privilege of being able to get a sneak peek of this book, and it is an excellent one, folks. It is, my gosh, she has put so much research into this book, so much time into this book. And I got to tell you, I was blown away by this book. Let's bring her in now. Let's talk about it. Of course, Caitlin Rother is the New York Times bestselling author of 16 books, including Down to the Bone, Hooked, Body Parts, Death on Ocean Boulevard, Naked Addiction, Dead Reckoning, Hunting Charles Manson, Lost Girls, and Secrets, Lies, and Shoelaces, and more. Let's bring her in right now. Caitlin, thank you so much for being back with us here on True Crime Tuesday. And I tip my cap. Kudos to you. Down to the Bone is amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so nice to hear. Really, seriously.
You want to talk about, oh my, okay, so normally in most cases, and we'll get down to the different players here in just a moment and talk about a case of, first of all, after reading this book, I've got to tell you, and after getting into this case, I've got to tell you, I don't know, and being a small business owner and operator myself, and of course you are yourself, who can you trust now to let into your own business and work for?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I can trust anybody. Is Joseph McStay, let person after person into his world. And I don't think there was one person he could let into his world who didn't in one way or another have bad intentions. It seems like there was nobody in his circumference or sphere of influence that had good intentions. It seems like everybody had these shades of gray, or there was an evil intent somewhere in here, wasn't there, Caitlin?
Well, I don't know about evil because, some of the people that we're talking about are his family members, and I don't know that they had bad intentions per se. But yeah, there are some people in his orbit that, let's just say, I'm not sure why he trusted them and why he decided to trust them when there were red flags. And by the same token, I'm not sure why law enforcement didn't see those same red flags and pay attention to them in terms of who was a potential suspect in this case. The thing about this book that was tricky is that it seemed like a lot of people in Joseph's orbit were not, like I said, I don't want to say they had bad intentions, but yeah, there were shades of gray everywhere. And there were people who had their own agendas to make money or to do whatever they did before or after he disappeared with his business. Eventually was sold without family having any authorization or participation or financial benefit. And so all that hard work for years that he went through, and he ended up declaring bankruptcy at one point because he was trying so hard to get this thing off the ground. He finally got it off the ground. It was doing well, doing better. He was trying to expand. And yet, the people in his orbit were, even before he disappeared, starting to take from him and trying to take money from him and take advantage of him. And it just seemed to me that so many people that he knew, he just trusted everyone. He was, likened to Jesus by somebody, I guess, on the train in Italy. He was like benevolent, and he looked like Jesus with the frizzy kind of surfer hair, longish hair, and the beard. And he just seemed like such a benevolent, nice person. Like, well, who would do this to him and his family? And that really, I think, is what made this case so tragic.
Yeah.
So basically, let's just say what happened to his family. His family disappeared on February of, I'm like thinking of all these different cases in my head that I'm trying to,
Oh,
and
sure.
we were just talking recently about another case and I'm getting my dates mixed up. So anyway, he disappeared. Nobody saw him or his family again after a certain day, wasn't reported for another 11 days in 2010, February of 2010. And so the sheriff's department initially said, oh, this seems like foul play, could be murder. They had a search warrant that said that. And then a judge, I guess, said, no, I'm not seeing any probable cause. Don't come back with another search warrant until you can find something that really shows these people were murdered. And because there was no blood in the house, there was nothing that they could really point to that said murder. It was investigated as a missing persons case. And the detective decided on his own through other clues that he found, which really were not very well supported. As it turns out, they were not even true, that this family went voluntarily to Mexico. So he dropped the case. And then 8 months after he dropped the case, their skeletal remains were found in 2 shallow graves in the desert where they had been all along. So anyway, that's what happened to his family. And each of the remains, they found the skulls, and there was, a pretty much round hole in the back of each one's skull. So somebody pounded them in the back, including a 3-year-old and 4-year-old boy.
Yeah.
What they believe was a 3-pound Stanley sledgehammer that was found in one of the graves. So what I'm trying to point out here is who in his orbit was bad enough that they would kill 2 little boys with a sledgehammer from behind. I mean, that's what really is so tragic about this case. And the reason I was drawn to this case is because, to me, there was a lot of, as I looked into it, there was a lot of things that were done wrong. And that's kind of what drew me to this case. It's what drew me to the last case that I wrote about involving the same sheriff's department, San Diego County Sheriff's Department. So Death on Ocean Boulevard, which was about the Rebecca Zahau case. There are many, many, many people here locally and nationally who believe they got that one wrong. The sheriff's department said Rebecca Zahau hung herself naked, bound, and gagged. And that's how she died. And her family believed she was murdered by her boyfriend's brother. And so did a civil jury. So here we are. This is another case that happened within a year. And it's the same sheriff's department. And again, they didn't get it right. And we know this for sure because the skeletal remains were found in the desert. So we still don't know positively what happened in the Rebecca Zahau case. So that remains a mystery. But I look at that as part 1, and this is part 2 of the San Diego Sheriff's Department's approach to missing persons and homicide and suspicious deaths, which is all done by the same team.
Well, I think what's going to surprise people in this book, and without giving too much away, you're going to see a lot of fumbles. That's a good way of putting this. A lot of fumbles throughout the book that have to go through the entire justice system, I think is a good way of putting this. But it's good to put it mainly on the sheriff's department, but I mean, it goes throughout the entire prosecutorial system.
Well, that's only the first part of this case, because there was another investigation by another sheriff's department, which investigated this as a homicide because now they had bodies, because they didn't have bodies before. So that's why, 2020 hindsight, it's easy to say, well, they should have known it was a murder. Well, they thought it was a murder because these people just disappeared. And they left food out on the counter in the middle of breakfast. They left their dogs abandoned in the backyard with no food and no water. Summer, who's the mom, Summer McStay, left her prescription glasses, which she couldn't see to drive without, at night. And just there were red flags. And I think, what I think doesn't really matter as much, but even the homicide detective from the next investigation said, well, they should have tried harder. They should have tried a different judge. They should have tried again when these people did not show up to do some more search warrants. And, they probably could have gotten a lot further because, they had to start this homicide investigation 4 years later. And a lot of clues were buried and gone and painted over and who knows what else. But there are also flaws in the San Bernardino County Sheriff's investigation, which I also went into. And I also believe there were giant gaping holes in the prosecution's case. There were contradictions that were clearly pointed out to the jury during the trial in the timeline that the prosecution, I mean, things that were logically, impossible to happen simultaneously in our realm of time and space. You can't have this happen if this happened, but they have them both happening. And the jury just sort of accepted it. So, I mean, I don't take a position in terms of guilt or innocence on who killed these people, because to tell you the truth, I don't really know.
Right. Well, and it's such a convoluted case. I think it's impossible to know who did. I mean, as I sit and read, I can't tell you. I honestly couldn't. And generally when I read a book, I even if there's a convoluted outcome, I pretty much can go, you know what? I think I know. And I couldn't tell you.
Did you go back and forth?
What's that?
Did you go back and forth?
I did.
Because I've heard other people who've read it said I went back and forth. And I had the same thing with Death on Ocean Boulevard, because what I'm doing is I am basically laying out all the decisions that were made, right, by these detectives, by these investigators, by these prosecutors, in terms of how they decided who was at fault and who wasn't, and how they investigated the evidence and what their theories were. And I'm, like I said, I don't take a position, but I'm laying it out for the reader so that they can make their own decision, hopefully, about what actually happened and whether this case was handled properly. And there are a lot of flaws and a lot of holes. And this was just one of the messiest cases I've ever seen.
Yeah. It, I we can talk a little bit about some of the bit players here and who may have taken out the McStay family here in just a bit, maybe on the other side of the break here. But it's one of those cases where you say, each one of these players has something wrong with them, but not enough to where you think, but they couldn't take out an entire family.
Well, and then my biggest question is, who would kill a 3 and a 4-year-old little boy in such a horrendously violent manner? Yeah, that is a certain type of individual, and I'm not sure that the people that we have in front of us, any one of them is entirely capable of that. I mean, the person who is on death row today, Charles Chase Merritt, he had a family of his own. He had his own little boy. He had 3 kids, right? And he knew these little boys of Joseph's, and Joseph was his best friend. And so to accuse somebody of stealing $20,000 and trying to cover that up as a motive for killing an entire family, including 2 little boys who were, the same age as his little boy, he has a prison record, but it's all for theft. It's not violent. So again, I am not taking a position that he did or didn't do it, but that was my main question. Who is a career thief who suddenly kills 4 people, including 2 little boys? And it's the 2 little boys that get me, because a child killer is a whole, criminals in prison have their own hierarchy, right? From what I understand. And there are the sexual predators who are the lowest of the low. There are the child killers who are the lowest of the low. Like the thieves, they don't think that they're bad people, right? But they want to kill the sexual predators and the child killers because they think they're terrible people. They're different, even in the eyes of criminals.
Right. Well,
so it's just hard to fathom, especially when his entire family said he wasn't violent and never saw him do anything. He didn't hurt his own little kids. He didn't punish them or hit them or, so he didn't kill little animals, so.
I was just going to say, you even quote Chase's daughter as saying the most he would do when it came time for punishment would be stand in the corner and think about what you did for an hour.
Right. And he is a con man. He's a charming con man, and he tells a great story. And I've talked to him. I interviewed him for the book numerous times. But, and I kind of thought to myself, could this person kill a whole family? I mean, I don't know. I just don't know. But again, like I said, I don't take a position because I just don't think that that's a good idea. And I honestly haven't formed one. So I try not to. So I can be objective because that to me, as a trained investigative reporter for my whole career, and then I turned to books, I have continued to maintain that, and I have been asked, well, what do you think? Who did it? Why do you think that? What do you think of the players? And what is your opinion? And I don't give it. And I feel that that's really important to maintain my integrity and my credibility as a storyteller, to just lay it out and let the reader decide on his own. And other authors don't do that. And I don't judge them for that, but that is my approach, and that is how I handle these books.
Let me reframe the question then for you, Caitlin.
Uh-huh.
In the many times that you interviewed Chase, did it ever seem to you that there was the type of psychopathy there with him where he could be that detached that maybe he could take himself
I
out
think
of
that
a
still
scenario
falls
where he
into
could
you.
kill a
I
child?
think you're still asking me the same question.
You
So
think so?
I'm not going to answer that because
Okay.
I feel like that really goes to my personal opinion of whether I think he could kill somebody, and I just don't.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable answering that. So no offense, but
Fair enough. No, I just I didn't know if maybe there was
I
something.
don't think you can tell with a con man, honestly.
No?
No, you can't. I mean, I interviewed Skylar DeLeon. Skylar DeLeon, I know. Do you know who Skylar DeLeon is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just briefly tell your listeners. Skylar DeLeon and his wife, Jennifer, at the time he was presenting as a man. He is now a woman, and legally, and I'm not sure because I haven't got confirmation on this, but apparently has had gender reassignment surgery paid for by taxpayers. She's on death row and still at San Quentin, apparently in the psychiatric ward, because I can't see any other reason since they've dismantled death row physically. She's still there, but she killed a man with her bare hands, with slit his throat and threw a couple off their yacht, tied them to an anchor, and killed them. So she's killed 3 people, and I've interviewed her a number of times, and you can't tell that she could be a killer either. So
Okay.
that's my way of answering that question. When you have somebody who is a con person, con man or con woman, they are so good at presenting as something else because they try to just tell you what you want to hear. And I could see her doing that as I was talking to her. Chase is more direct, and Chase wants to just give you his opinion and wants to set you straight and wants to argue and make sure that you understand his position. But he tells a great story and he's very charming. So he's not at the same level as Skylar DeLeon, but he's definitely got his own set of charms. So like I said, that's why it's so difficult to tell.
Yeah.
And I've written about other con men and con women, and I didn't get to interview them personally, but I could tell that they were just really good at manipulating people in their opinion. So that's a tough one to answer regardless.
Very true. Very true. There is, and I'm gonna leave the other suspect for the other side of the break because he's an interesting one too. And boy, you want to talk about a convoluted, even more convoluted than Chase. Which I mean, you're talking about a glaring suspect who was left out of this whole thing. We'll talk about him on the other side of the break because I really think that that one was just left out there, and I could see where Chase might want to point the finger over there and say you really got to look at that guy over there.
Which he did.
Which he did, but it still didn't hold
seem
up.
to do any good.
No, it didn't seem to do any good at all. I want to talk a little bit about the family before we go to break, because it is in a way, I don't want to say in a way, it is quite tragic. I want to get a little bit of background on them before we go to break, and the stories themselves of Joseph and Summer and the children. You mentioned a little bit about Joe and his upbringing, just a little bit about his personality. Tell us a little bit about his wife Summer, and she had kind of a colorful upbringing, to say the least. But tell us a little bit about Summer before we go to break.
Well, I wish I had been able to meet these people. So all I could do, and I should have said this before, but I want to preface that 4 months before I had to turn this book in, I got a treasure trove of discovery information. So that's witness interviews, investigative reports, all kinds of background information that none of which was really made public or released to the public. Most of it was kept out of the trial. It all kind of went into the investigation that eventually made it to trial. But that was how I was able to paint the picture of how these investigators made their decisions and who they decided was a suspect. And basically going through the course of some of these witness interviews, which you could see even during those interviews, how information somehow got to be changed from what that person said to what the investigators wanted to have been said, that fit their theory or fit their premise. And by the time it got to trial, it had evolved and changed to fit what the prosecution wanted to paint. So that to me was fascinating, and maybe that happens all the time, I don't know, but I had direct insight into that, and I wanted to share that with the readers. So what I learned about Joseph and Summer, a lot of it came from, what was in the public domain previously. So I went through all these court records, I went through divorce records, I went through media reports and what people were interviewed and what they said, but it was all kind of surface. There was also a book that came out early on, which was later retracted and withdrawn because it basically blamed Summer for murdering her entire family. But there was a lot of stuff in there that actually was real. So there were emails that were reprinted, and so I read those from Summer to Joseph, and this person got those from Patrick McStay, who was Joseph's adopted father. And so some of these things are real, and some of them weren't, that were in the book were not real. And then I got this treasure trove of information with these witness interviews, and I learned a lot about the family members and what they thought of Summer. And so some of this may not even be true, but I was trying to just show what was going on in everybody's minds and what the family members were sharing with detectives in order for the detectives to form their theories and premises and what happened to these people. So the picture of Summer was not very positive based on what I gleaned from people. And I wish that I had been able to interview some of her friends, but they did not want to be interviewed. So I could only use what I had, the basis of what I had. And that was, she wanted her 4-person family to be very insulated, and that's what she ended up doing. So there are pictures of her and one of the kids, or Joseph and one of the kids, and nobody else, which means that she and Joseph were the only ones taking pictures of each other because nobody else was allowed into their little space. She wouldn't let Joseph's mother really come into the picture very often. She pushed her away. She pushed her own mother away. She got in arguments with her brother and sister that kept them from seeing each other or speaking for months or years at a time. So, she loved Joseph, but she had some issues, and so she wanted to just keep her family close. And, Joseph's friends, were no longer allowed into the picture either. So it just became like this isolated little family. And so she was also, according to other family members, Joseph's family members, really paranoid and overprotective, which I think code was, kind of crazy. She should have been on medication, Joseph's mother said. So, I think she was, she had some issues, but I know she loved her kids and she loved Joseph, and she was just trying to protect them. She was basically, she waited until both of her kids were, born before she and Joseph got married. And she didn't like Chase Merritt at all. She made that really clear to Joseph. She even talked to their mutual friend about her feelings about Chase. So she was basically, like I said, just pushing everybody away. She apparently she was funny, she was witty, she liked to read. She was trying to get back into real estate. She had been in real estate before the boys were born, and she was just getting back into that with some friends. One of them was a bridesmaid, and she was planning to use their house in Fallbrook, where they had just recently moved in and were renovating, as kind of a home office for, operating out in that area as a real estate agent. And then Joseph also worked at home. So they were both working in the house while the remodeling was going on. He had his own online manufacturing waterfall business. And so he was doing that from home, and it was all online. So they had to kind of coexist and co-parent. In the middle of this scandalous CPS investigation, which Summer launched with a complaint. And I have to be very, very careful to stay very vague on those details, even though I have more details. I couldn't put them in the book because we have to protect minors and people's privacy. So, but there were accusations going on that further divided the family and further isolated Joseph and Summer from the rest of the family.
Interesting. Would it be safe to say that Summer not only complicated family life, but potentially Joseph's work life as well?
It seemed like it was going in that direction toward right before they disappeared, because she basically was getting into a fight with Chase while they were trying to eat pizza, in the house. And she said, I think you should leave, because she didn't like the way he was eating pizza in front of her kids, because she was trying to teach the kids manners with a knife and fork. And I guess Chase was just, I don't know. So, yeah, that was the feeling that he gave me, when he retold the story. Yeah. So, and I compared that to other tellings, and it seemed to match. So,
yeah. Just so she was one who would overstep the bounds just because she felt it a certain way in one day.
Well, I think she also didn't like the way that Chase and Joseph kind of had this running tab of, I owe you money, and now you owe me money, and they'd kind of go back and forth. And it was all on paper, and, they have to keep settling up periodically. And that became a big issue during the trial in terms of whether Chase had really stolen any money or not from him, and whether it was just the way they operated together. So,
when I read that's not the first time I've heard of contractors doing that, especially contractors that work closely with each other. So to me, that wasn't a shock.
Yeah. I mean, I even do that with my partner. We'll go to Costco and he'll spend a bunch of money on his credit card, and then I'll go to another store and I'll buy a bunch of stuff for him. And then we kind of have to settle up on who paid what, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. It didn't seem like a shock to me, but I
guess she didn't like that. That was one of the things she didn't like.
Yeah. And to someone, maybe to someone who thinks that money coming in is money taken away from the family, I could see where, and someone who's insular like that, I could see where she would think, well, hey, wait a minute, that's our money going out the door. I could see her being defensive.
Right. And also by the same token, Joseph didn't like the fact that she was spending a bunch of money at, Walmart to buy kids' toys. And they got in a fight with the neighbor before they moved, because she bought a whole bunch of stuff and put it in the driveway, and it just kept, the pile was growing and growing and growing until it upset the neighbor. So, money was an issue.
Right.
Between them.
Right. I tell you what, we're going to take our break here. When we come back, I want to talk about the other potential suspect who never got drug into this, Caitlin, who potentially could have been the killer, but like I said, never got brought up. This book, folks, is amazing. It's called Down to the Bone. Caitlin Rother is the author and researcher in this entire case. And I tell you, boy, oh boy, the case of the McStay family is a muddy one. Literally a muddy one, because this took place. I know it's a bad pun, Caitlin, but it took place in the desert, out in the Mojave Desert. And when we come back, we'll talk about Hacker Dan and why this particular character has his hands all over this, yet got away scot-free. Or did he? We'll talk about that with Caitlin when we come back. Down to the Bone, a missing family's murder in the elusive quest for justice is the name of the book. It's available for pre-order right now. It comes out on June 24th. So get your pre-orders in right now. We have a link in the description of this program. When we come back, Hacker Dan. How innocent or guilty is he? We'll talk about his situation when we come back with Caitlin Rother right after this on True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. My guest is author Caitlin Rother. The book is fantastic, folks. It's called Down to the Bone, a missing family's murder and the elusive quest for justice. It's available right now for pre-order. It comes out on June 24th. I'm telling you, pre-order it. Don't wait for this thing to come out. Get it right now. We have a link in the description of this program. I highly encourage you to get this book. If you take more than one reading to get through this thing, I don't know what you're doing, because I'm telling you, you're going to be riveted from beginning to end. This book is amazing. It is amazing. Caitlin has outdone herself with this book.
Thank you so much.
I'm telling you, fascinating book, Caitlin. Fascinating book. Let's talk about the one person who is questionable. I'm trying to phrase this carefully, Caitlin. Is questionable in this entire case. A person who is involved in the business of the McStay family and EIB. Is that's the name of the business, right?
EIP, yeah.
EIP, I'm sorry, EIP. Earth-inspired products.
I think it was actually called Earth Inspired Products and later got abbreviated, maybe only because of the domain name or something, but yeah.
And speaking of domain names, webmaster, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Goes by the nickname Hacker Dan.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's a great thing for a webmaster to be called, but
I was proud of it, apparently.
Yeah, very proud.
He cultivated the image by wearing that hoodie, referred to himself in the third person as Danimal.
Yeah, Danimal. Love clubs. He was a big fan of the club scene.
Yep.
Might have. Is it safe to say might have loved that club scene a little much, right?
Let's just say there were some things that I learned that I did not put in the book, so I can't talk about them either.
Okay, good. Well,
whatever you got from what I put in the book is fine. So sure. I'll just let you talk.
Sure. Okay. There was he might have dabbled a little in the drug scene. I'll throw that out there and put it on me. And so there's that as well.
I did hear that. Yes.
Yes. And Hacker Dan spent time in Hawaii. He spent time on the West Coast as well.
He lived in San Diego.
In San Diego.
Yeah. And he also lived in Orange County.
Okay. He had an arrangement with Joseph to get the company's presence out on the web to build the profile so that they could get this business.
That was very early on. Yes. Yeah. In the very early years, Joseph had a kind of a hinky little website, I think, that he either designed on his own or someone helped him with. I don't remember. I think he probably did it on his own, and it wasn't very good. And it was very, basic. So yeah, Dan was kind of a whiz, a young kid who he met in Orange County. I think maybe even through the surf scene, because Joseph was a surfer. One of his good friends that he hung out with and lived with was his roommate, also was surfing. And so Dan was younger and, they ended up meeting each other. And Dan did design the first website. And over time, this became of great debate. And what I was told by the detectives in San Bernardino and the prosecutor, that because this business of Joseph's was so kind of loosey-goosey, the way that he did his bookkeeping, and there was nothing really in writing, that they couldn't ever say what was true and what wasn't, which allowed Dan Kavanaugh to pretty much claim whatever he wanted, and there was no way to disprove it. But furthermore, even if they believed that he had done things that were wrong in taking money from the business. And when he eventually sold the business without any authorization to two people who operated a weed store, one of whom was prosecuted for operating a national mail weed across the country in boxes operation. And he was arrested with cash and drugs and guns in his little place in La Jolla and PB, rather, Pacific Beach. That none of that ended up being allowed in when the defense tried to bring it in. There's so much that I wanted to bring in because it wasn't allowed into the trial, which is that the judge, is that the prosecution, is that, anyway, there was a gun that Joseph had that ended up in the possession of a felon who shouldn't have been able to get it, who got it supposedly in a trade from somebody who was in the cannabis industry, just like the people who bought the business from Dan. And so all of that, even though there's no direct line to Dan, it's still loosely, if you put all this stuff out, there was a prosecutor, Matt Murphy, who I've written 2 books about. He's now works as a consultant for 2020. He just had his own book come out. He was oh, has he? Okay, great. He is the master of the circumstantial evidence case. And, I think he would have done some different things, or could have, say Dan was ever arrested, which he never was, because he was never even identified as a suspect. I think, Matt would have been able to take some of these pieces of evidence and draw dots between them. But these detectives and these prosecutors chose not to do that because they had already decided that Chase Merritt was the guilty person who stole money from Joe and lied about it and forged checks and, et cetera, $20,000. When in court later, the defense brought an expert out who showed that Dan brought in like $206,000 through the business that he basically took over and spent much of that on himself, as you say, in the nightclubs.
Yeah.
So, it's just, they said, well, there's no direct line to him, killing these people. But by the same token, they accused Chase Merritt of stealing money, and it was a lot less, 10% of what Dan ended up taking from this business. And he had threatened Joseph before in writing, that they had in texts. Mm-hmm. So it just seemed, very unbalanced in terms of who, they just decided, according to the defense, this was their entire case. It was confirmation bias. They decided Chase Merritt was guilty, and they just went after him, and they ignored all this other stuff. They ignored the gun. They ignored the fact that these people who were in the, weed selling business and were in a federal, one of them was, not both of them, but one of them was indicted and, convicted of, well, he made a deal, so I guess he wasn't convicted. I don't know what the legal terminology is of that, but anyway, he was in trouble and he ended up getting sentence. But he had a great lawyer, so he didn't have to actually really serve any time, because this is what happens when you have money. But the bottom line is that the defense said these people bought this business because they wanted boxes to put their pot in and ship it across the country. Why not buy a waterfall online manufacturing business where they're mailing waterfalls in boxes? So that, that's what the defense wanted to argue, and they were not allowed to bring any of that out in the trial. So I made sure to make chapters of some of this stuff so that what was not even allowed into the trial, that the jurors never even got to hear. Yeah. So I don't know. Do I think Dan Kavanaugh killed them? He says he didn't. Chase Merritt says he didn't either. Like I said, I don't take a position on who did what. But again, he's just a kid. Is he going to kill 2 little boys with a sledgehammer? He bragged about killing them to other people, which is bizarre.
Now, why? And I don't want to ask you that question because I don't want to get you in trouble.
It's so hard. It's so hard because, people have their rights, and I can't accuse anybody who wasn't accused because it's not legal to do that. And I don't even have an opinion about it. So I'm just trying to say, here's what the evidence was. Here's what I know.
You know, I can wonder aloud, and I'm going to wonder aloud to myself, and you can just nod along as I wonder aloud,
Okay, that's
Caitlin.
fair.
Someone like Dan Kavanaugh, who's partying in clubs and flashing a lot of money that he's embezzled, because let's face it, that's what he's done. He's embezzled it. It's come through a PayPal account. He's taken it. And that's, if he's guilty of anything, that's what he's guilty of. He's guilty of embezzling. And again, that's just my opinion. It's not the opinion of the author. I'm putting that out there right now. It's
And
my
I think I may have said this already, but the prosecution and the investigators basically said, even if they believe that to be true, there is no victim. They could never take it to court. Joseph is the victim, allegedly, of this theft or embezzlement or whatever you want to call it. They can't take that to court. Therefore, they can't arrest him for it.
That's right.
I wanted to make sure that was clear.
Right. And that's clear. There's no victim because, right. Correct. With that being said, he's flashing around a lot of money. He's playing a big baller. We'll throw that out there. So to compound lie upon lie, if he says, "Oh yeah, I took out the family and put him in the desert," it's part of that Big Willie type talk, right? And gangster type talk. Yeah, I put a family. You don't mess with me. I put a family in the desert, right?
But he never said that to the police. He said, oh, I'm going to help you. You really wish you would have told me that you were, what you were investigating sooner, because I could have helped you with that. And, he literally was saying, look, I have these emails that I can share with you. Well, how did you get those emails? How did you get Summers' emails? Did anyone ever ask him that? No, they're just like, okay, yeah, great. Give us the emails. And I was just like, wait a second. Isn't this a little weird? Aren't you going to ask how he hacked into her account to get her emails? Don't you care about that?
Yeah. Well, they didn't ask about the illegality of how he got a hold of certain things, but then again, they can't. Isn't there that double standard? No,
at that point they could have asked. It could have made a difference, but they were like, well, the McStays say that he's helping them keep the business going for Joseph for when he comes back. That was the story. And since the family is not accusing Dan of anything, Dan has convinced the family that he can take care of it, he's going to run the business, but then he ends up taking the business and selling it without their authorization. But by that point, they kind of threw up their hands, it seems like, and just walked away because they were just too busy trying to find their family members. That's what they said at trial.
Why is it that Patrick McStay, Joseph,
on the other hand, was really accusing Dan Kavanaugh behind the scenes to the detective and was trying to get the detective to investigate him.
Yeah. Why is it initially he's going after Dan, but then he turns and he does a 180 and he goes after Chase? Why is it? Because
he's been arrested and by that point. I can't answer that because I interviewed him once and then he didn't want to be interviewed again because he said he was updating his own book and he was doing some TV shows and he had a contract with them that he had to be exclusive. He was being paid to be on these TV shows. Eventually there was a series that came out. I guess they must have given him money and made him sign an exclusivity contract so he couldn't talk to me. And there you go. So I couldn't ask him that.
Okay.
But yeah, he really did try to help, and made the case against Dan Kavanaugh that he should be looked at as a suspect. And it just felt like the detective was just so annoyed with Patrick McStay, like bugging him all the time, that he became a problem. And they just didn't want to listen to what he was saying, even though he was raising really legitimate points. Yeah. So I give credit for that. Yeah. Even though he was clearly being a pain in the butt, Yeah. To the point where the detective called in his sergeant, as a buffer and refused to deal with him anymore.
Right. The one person that's in the lurch or left in the lurch here that I did want to address briefly is the mother, Susan, who comes in to try to do something with the company, but really doesn't have much of a clue either way. Doesn't know that Dan is controlling funds or siphoning
Right.
funds that are coming in. Has no idea that Chase is supposed to be doing work and really isn't is or isn't performing functions for the company. Doesn't really know that what one hand is doing or that the other hand is doing anything. She's just trying to run the company as it is.
Right. And even though I know she didn't do this on purpose, no one told her not to do this, and she didn't know any better. She came in and cleaned up the whole kitchen before they searched the house, and moved everything and cleaned up. I was just like, oh, which is basically what the detective said when they walked in and saw what had happened. They went, oh.
Yeah.
But what was also interesting was the fact that she kept cleaning the house, and she later told the detective she knew that Joseph kept tens of thousands of dollars out of the bank or out of the tax realm, income that he was not declaring, and didn't tell the detective for months about that. But hey, was that another motive why someone might have come in and tried to rob them, that they might have known that he had money in the house? I don't know. And they never found that money. The detectives could never really found that money. He tried, but then he gave up and they never found it. I don't know if the mom or brother found it in the house, but to public knowledge, we don't know where that money went.
Right. Tell you what, Caitlin, I want to leave the rest of this for people to read because there's so much more to this. Who
killed these people? That's what I want to know. If anybody knows, I hope somebody will. The defense also brought up that there was a Mexican cartel that was known for killing people with sledgehammers.
Yeah.
So there are people who I had people emailing me while I was writing this book, were convinced this was a cartel job. And why though? Why would they go after this family? That's the other reason. I mean, I don't know. These questions that remain unanswered.
Well, it feels like a hired hit. It really does. I mean, but then you have to ask yourself,
what's the motive?
Who hired, right? And
right.
Who's supposed to gain?
And why?
Right.
And what did they gain?
Right.
By killing these people.
Right.
Chase Merritt gained, if this was true, $20,000. Is that really enough of a motive? Kill an entire family? That's my question.
Yeah. And really, if you look at what Dan Kavanaugh gained, a little over 200 grand, was that enough? That didn't seem like enough.
Right.
So who really gained?
I don't know.
Right.
I also, what also bugs me is the fact that the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department kept saying that they were convinced that that family was murdered in that house when they never found a single drop of blood. And if anybody who knows anything about head injuries, if you're going to have a giant hole in your head from a sledgehammer, that blood is going to splatter everywhere.
Yeah.
No amount of cleaning or painting is going to cover that. And they did not find a single drop of blood in the house. And so, the detective, so you're convinced that that murder was in the house? Yes. Even though you have absolutely no forensic evidence to support that? Yes. I was just like, okay, that's where we are.
There were a lot of blind eyes turned in this investigation. A lot.
That's what my book is about. A lot of raised eyebrows, crazy, messy, unanswered questions.
Yeah. And you put a lot of hard work, a lot of detail into each and every
12 years. Thank you. Yes.
Yes. And there's a lot of twists, a lot of turns. Again, I know I'm being very vague about this, but I want people.
We've gone into quite a bit of detail, actually. But thank you for respecting my wishes. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I want people to dive into this book. It's a very detailed book, and again, it's one of those books where you're riveted from page to page to page, to not just into the backstory of the McStay family, because you get to learn the backstory of the family. You get to really feel for Joseph and Summer and the kids, and by the time you learn of their end, you want justice for them. You're wanting to get that ending for them, and you're wanting someone to. Can I go ahead and say it, Caitlin? You want somebody to fry for this thing, but the deal is, first of all, you can't get that in California anymore. That's just the way it is.
But that's what the prosecution was playing on, was the emotion of wanting to blame somebody for killing those children. So he just, he'd take the sledgehammer and he'd bang it on the podium, bang, bang, like that's what the killer did when he killed those little boys. And that's how you get the emotion from the jurors to vote for something where there are these unanswered questions. And, they could not answer when, where, or really how this happened.
Yeah.
Then he just says, well, I don't have to prove that. I'm just like, well, maybe the jury should have demanded to know if they're going to vote for this, to know more. And I just was I was surprised.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people in Law and Crime, the channel, they live streamed this trial. I tried to go, but it was like some ridiculous amount of time on the freeway. I went to the preliminary hearings. I went to the opening and closing statements and arguments. And it was just, it's too far away from my house. And in commuting time, it was like 6 hours of driving in one day. It just was physically impossible. So I tried to watch it live stream, but the connection was so bad, it kept cutting out. So anyway, I had to do a lot of it on paper and by reading these reports and, so watching, they had a lot of it on YouTube, the trial excerpt. So not all of it though. So.
Yeah. Again, folks, get this book. Pre-order it now. Don't wait for it to go on sale on the 24th. Get it now. We have a link in the description of this program. Down to the Bone: A Missing Family's Murder and the Elusive Quest for Justice. Caitlin Rother, I want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me back.
And thank you for being back. We greatly appreciate it. And folks, like I said, you're gonna fall in love with the McStay family. Your heart's gonna sink quite a bit when you realize that their fate, and you're going to want to get justice for them. You're going to want to read between the lines. You're probably going to say, I think I know who did this. You may be wrong by the end of the book, but I want you guys to email me, tim@darknessradio.com. Let me know who you think did it. I may share with you who I think did it. I still don't know that I'm right. I don't think I'm right, Caitlin. So, but thank you so much for being with us today.
You.
All right, it's time for us to lighten things up a little bit now, folks. It's time now for us to join Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time again, the time you've all been looking forward to. It's time for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals. And with that, I need a co-hostess. So what I've done is, in this stormy day in which there's a tornado watch out in my area, so at any time the power could go. Let's cross our fingers, folks. I'm reaching out my hand, hoping it doesn't get struck by lightning, out across the Twin Cities. And I'm reaching out, hopefully hoping that I don't have a key in it. Thank you, Benjamin Franklin. And reaching out for my co-hostess, who has not one, not two, but 3 books out there on every top 10 list there is overseas now, I believe. I don't know. I've been doing lots of research, and I keep seeing it on every top 10 list I can imagine, in Europe, in Asia, and in Uzbekistan, I believe, is one of the countries that it's on. You can just name the country. It's probably there. But you'll find it. And plus, there's many more books coming out. We can run them down with her when we bring her on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, she's intelligent, she's witty, she's funny, and she's pretty darn easy on the eyes. Here she is, Jessica Freeburg. Hi, Jess. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good.
Well, that's wonderful. See,
Yeah.
am I right? Is it every darn chart in the world now you're on?
I think you might be exaggerating a little bit, but we're just gonna roll with it because I like it. It makes me smile.
All right, good. Good. Then that's fine. We'll
They're
keep
good books, though.
they are very good books. And then the next book is available when? See, I'm already looking forward to the next one. I'm putting
Yes.
pressure on you.
August. I think I have 4 more coming out in August.
4 coming out in August?
4. Yeah, that puts me up to 14 books in total, I think.
Jeez. They don't believe in
So
staggering at your company, do they?
no, not at this particular publisher. Mm-mm.
Wow. We'll have to have a small talk with them. Like, maybe.
I think because they're regional, and so they're just like they're pushing it into stores in different parts, because they're monsters of the South and I think monsters of the Pacific Northwest. And so they're just like, we'll just release them all at once because they're all like they're focusing in on selling in different regions.
Okay,
But
we can hold one back for, we'll do one in the fall, one in the winter, one in the, we can do
yeah,
that. That'd be nice.
it would be nice.
Let it breathe, I believe is let it breathe.
Well, then I would feel like I had to have a book launch party for all of them, and then I would just never not be partying. I mean, that's just overwhelming.
Oh, that's true. But fun.
Yeah, I guess. Parties are fun, aren't they, Tim?
They are fun. Yes, they are. They are fun. That's for sure. Well, we have a very busy show for Dumb Crime Stupid Criminals today. I'll tell you this much. I will tease this much. Our palate cleanser today is a bit cheeky.
I can't wait.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that much. And there is quite a bit of levity today. I do want to start it off a little bit serious, and then we'll get the serious out of the way right away. Some of you who follow me on social media do know that I did graduate with Melissa Hortman, who unfortunately was shot and killed over the weekend, along with her husband Mark, and the State Senator Hoffman, as well, was maimed and injured along with his wife. There's no soapbox here, folks, other than just to say I'm pleased. I'm happy as punch that they got this piece of shit who did this. Before we hit air today, the feds did add the death penalty
Oh, good.
to them, and they put in their own charges of murder and stalking. There's a special place in hell for this guy. I'm not going to say his name. He doesn't deserve it. He's pure evil is what he is. And I hope, and this is my hope, that the feds will do everything and the state will do everything to put the full extent of the law on this, and that this will be the thing that will cool political rhetoric between both sides. That will show you that you can't go out and inflict your opinion physically on another person. That this is the end of it. That it's time now to settle down and stop it. We're done with it now. It's time now to get back to leaving politics to being the business of the country and of the state, because that's all it is business. That's all it is. It's business. It's like balancing your checkbook. It's like figuring out what you're going to have for dinner. That's all it is. It's business. It's no more important than that. And you go on with your life. And you go on and enjoy your family. And you go on and figure out what you're going to do with your job. There's nothing that's that important. It's not that important that there should be tribalism about it. It's not that important that you alienate your family members. It's not that important that you alienate friends. It's not that important that you get into huge arguments on social media. It's not that important that it consumes your life. It's not that important. It just isn't. It's not that important. Because if you should learn anything by this weekend, Melissa had friends on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
Great personal friends on the other side of the aisle that were weeping, gnashing, gritting their teeth, talking about what a great person she was. that are mourning, that are sick to their stomach, that she's gone. What more do you need to know? That the whole thing's a work, right? The whole thing's, as we say in the wrestling business, Jess, the whole thing's a work. You guys are fighting over politics. They're having a drink and slapping each other on the back when business is over.
Exactly.
And I'll just end it on that.
Yeah, 100% true.
You guys are fighting over nothing. And you guys are the idiots for fighting. That's all there is to it. And I've been saying that for years. I've been working political radio for years, and I know that. I see politicians all the time. And I've been trying to tell people, don't get whipped up about it. There's nothing to get whipped up about. Because they do their business, they go home. You guys are the ones getting whipped up over nothing. Nothing. I don't get it. I don't get it. And
I don't either, Tim.
And I don't get why this weekend happened. I really don't.
No, it's absolutely senseless.
Yeah. And I lost a friend because of this now. And I want to see this guy fry. Not before he gets pounded in the ass about 400 or 500 times by inmates. But I want to see this guy fry. I've never believed in the death penalty until this weekend. But I want to see. I want to see it.
That is understandable.
So
it really is. It's a big hurt.
Yeah. But I'll leave it at that. Now let's have some fun.
All right.
Because I'm ready to. I've had enough gnashing my teeth, crying, screaming, punching walls. I've had enough of that this weekend. And I'm ready to have some fun. With that, let's talk about people having meltdowns, because it seems like there are more and more people in this country who are having meltdowns. I got stuff from Raul and I got stuff from Matt this weekend to feature on the program. I don't remember if it was Raul or Matt who sent this, but there was a captain on an airplane. We seem to be talking about this a lot. This isn't necessarily a crime, but we're going to lead off with it, Jess. A captain had a meltdown on a plane, basically saying, "This is your captain speaking." This was posted by Flyers Club on Instagram. It was a feature on Inside Edition. The captain basically stood up in front of the flight and said, "If you don't like this, deal with it." And went off on a rant that included a little bit of racism, a little bit of "this is how I'm going to fly the plane," and a little bit of "if you don't like what I'm wearing, well, shove it up your ass." A little bit of everything. So let's listen to this a little bit and figure out what it was this captain was trying to get to. In the meantime, 20 people walked off this flight before the captain herself walked off the flight.
Oh, wow.
Are you ready for this? This is how it went down.
Stop, and we'll fly the airplane. Don't worry, I'm going to let my co-pilot fly it. He's a man. Okay?
It's a total meltdown. The pilot boarded in her street clothes and addressed the passengers over the intercom. Passenger Pam O'Neill couldn't believe what was happening.
And let's take a vote. How many of you would like to take off now with me dressed as I am, or would you prefer that I take 10 minutes to get changed into my cute little uniform? Then she started talking about her divorce and political candidates. And the minute she mentioned that, a gentleman stood up and just yelled, "Whoa, enough, you're scaring me."
Another passenger, Randy Reese, got up to leave and gave a running commentary on social media. "I'm shaking right now." The captain demonstrated that she was not mentally in a safe space. She says, "Sorry, I'm going through a divorce." Uh-oh. The pilot also insulted a mixed-race couple on board.
Did I offend you? Okay, so did I purposely offend you? I did. The answer is yes.
The more she tried to convince everyone she was okay to fly, the more people got off.
Flight attendants, please disarm doors.
Anthony Roman is a retired pilot.
Everything went wrong on the flight. The captain clearly was in an emotional state and was having a breakdown. The right thing to do, you don't feel safe on an aircraft, is to take matters into your own hand and get up and leave that aircraft.
20 passengers insisted on getting off the United Airlines flight. The pilot quietly left the aircraft.
So the pilot gets up off the aircraft. At that point, we're not safe. We're done.
Yeah, that's scary when your pilot's unhinged.
Yeah. What is it lately about people who are unhinged who feel like they need to just bring it out in public?
No, do you think that's a social media thing? Like social media has cracked us open where we feel like everything needs to be everyone's business?
It's either that or somehow the people who are unhinged just now feel like it's okay to bring it out in public.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it started, with Facebook when it first came out and everyone's like at the drive-through at Starbucks getting my coffee and it just kind of went downhill from
Yeah.
there. Like everything we're doing, we're talking about. Why?
It's like, you know what? If they can get their 15 minutes, well, I'm going to get my 15 minutes. And it's
Yeah.
going to be a little outrageous, and I'm going to be even more outrageous.
And then it just created this atmosphere where it's like, well, I'm feeling it. I should talk about it. Right? Like, well, not always.
No,
That's what your
no.
girlfriends and buddies are for.
That's right. Right. And sometimes the voices that are in your head should just stay in your head. Don't
Yes.
don't bring them out for the general public because none of us care.
And you're scary.
Right. Yeah, you're scary. And that's why they make 72-hour psych holds so that you can go to a hospital and get it treated properly.
Yeah. Boy.
You know,
I think I would have got off that flight too.
yeah. I think at some point I would have probably grabbed the bag and said, you know what, I think this flight's probably going down, and I'm not going to be on it. Yeah,
We'll take a train.
that's right. That's why they make trains, and they make planes. No, not planes. They make automobiles. The other part of that
Right.
that threesome.
Planes, trains, and automobiles.
That's right. And there's no way that I'm going to do that. I take it Father's Day weekend around the house was nice, peaceful. It was good.
It was wonderful. I mean, honestly, if I'm being honest, I had a little food poisoning.
Oh, no.
So I felt really bad because I wanted to like spoil my husband all day and I was just really not feeling well. But I kind of got over it midday and we were able to have my dad and my mom over and my brother and we had fun. But
I went over, I visited my dad, my uncle my uncle's my godfather. So I went over
yes.
and visited for a little bit and just watched a round of golf on the old television. And as we should honor dads, honor dads, uncles, godfathers, whoever it is, the males in your life who've helped us along. One Miami man, however, Jess, honored dad in a different way.
Uh-oh.
You've heard the saying, I brought you into this life, I'll take you out.
Yes.
Well, according to the son, you gave me life. I guess I'll make sure I take you out. I don't know. That doesn't make sense, but
I think he got it wrong, but
I think he got it wrong in a big way too. A Miami man is accused of shooting his dad on Father's Day weekend.
oh my goodness.
Okay, a tie, a mug, a shirt, a card, a bullet is probably the wrong thing to get for Father's Day, right?
Definitely not on my list of possibilities when I'm considering what to get my dad's.
Yeah, I don't think they sell that at Macy's. I'm pretty sure. Miami police officers reported arresting Adrian Garcia early Sunday morning at Northwest 4th Street and 48th Court in the city's, I believe it is Flagami neighborhood. Not familiar that part of Miami. Sorry. Police said Garcia shot his father on Saturday night. According to neighbors, at least 2 gunshots were heard at the home where Garcia lives with his parents. Oh, so they give him a roof and food, and he repaid them with a bullet. Nice kid.
That's not gratitude.
No, it's not. I think maybe an eviction notice is coming his way, I'm sure, for his special day.
Yes.
Local 10's Terrell Forney was told responding officers were initially met with people who were telling them conflicting information, but detectives were able to sort out what they believe actually happened, leading to Garcia's arrest. Miami-Dade correctional deputies booked Garcia on Father's Day morning at the Turner Guilford Night Correctional Center. He faces a felony charge of attempted murder with a deadly weapon. A neighbor said the victim's wife has remained at his side at Jackson Memorial Hospital's Ryder Trauma Center following the shooting. A motive for the shooting remains unclear. Detectives have asked anyone with information about this case and other cases to call Miami-Dade County Crime Stoppers at 305-471-8969. 8477. So evidently, it's a little muddy as to what happened. They still don't know what completely happened. But somehow Dad ended up with a bullet.
Yikes. Happy Father's Day.
Yeah, happy Father's Day, Dad. You're going to be in some pain and in a medical facility for it. Yikes.
Not cool.
Another thing that doesn't quite add up is it happened in New Hampshire this past weekend, Jess. As we know, it's quite warm outside. I mean, right now the temperature's dropping here because evidently there's a rainstorm going through, but it was warm today. It was 77 degrees. There's green grass out on the lawn, right?
Right.
Especially in New Hampshire, green grass, trees. One of these things doesn't fit. Okay. I'm going to give you a picture here. Okay. Green grass, trees, open lakes, snowmobile. Which one doesn't fit?
Definitely the snowmobile could be an issue.
Right. Well, one man is dead after crashing his snowmobile. That's right, his snowmobile into a tree in New Hampshire, according to the Fish and Game Department there. It's June.
How was it going?
Well,
doesn't it require snow to glide over?
It requires something. I mean, that tread only goes so far. I mean, it can run on grass, but only so far, right?
Right.
Yeah. Speed, alcohol, and operating in a public way appear to be the lead contributing factors in that crash. So there's alcohol involved, and I suppose, hey, you know what? I haven't fired up the old snowmobile in a couple of months. As you probably shouldn't. There is a picture here of the snowmobile before it was fired up in Mason, New Hampshire. I didn't know that was a sport in New Hampshire, firing up the old snowmobile midsummer.
I don't think it's universal activity. I think it was, centralized to this one
You think
individual.
So? An individual? Snowmobile races in New Hampshire in summer isn't a thing?
I don't think so. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Could be. A man is dead after crashing his snowmobile into a tree early Sunday morning in Mason, New Hampshire, according to authorities. New Hampshire Fish and Game said around 2:15 a.m. That's right, it happened in the middle of the night. Conservation officers were notified to a possible deadly snowmobile crash on Old County Road. Can you imagine fielding that call? Yeah,
you would be like, excuse me?
Yeah, a what? Crashed into a tree? The operator, who should have known better, 37-year-old DJ Ducharme of Mason, was operating his snowmobile when it went off the road at a high rate of speed and hit a tree, according to Fish and Game authorities. Ducharme was pronounced dead at the scene, authorities said. Guess what, Jess? He wasn't wearing his helmet.
Well, I'm shocked. I thought safety would have been a priority.
Especially when you're drunk, right? When you've had one or too many pops, you just figure, well, I should grab the helmet before I get on the snowmobile and go at a high rate of speed at that tree.
Oh, so sad.
If we learned one thing from Sonny Bono, Jess, it should be that we should grab a helmet or we aim for that tree. Speed, alcohol, and operating on a public way appear to be the lead contributing factors in the crash, according to authorities, but it remains under investigation. I'm surprised they're still investigating this. That's my surprise. Evidently, there's not a lot to do in New Hampshire. But I can't believe they're still investigating it.
Yeah, it seems pretty open and shut.
It does, doesn't it? You would think that this would be an open and shut case.
Poor decisions, bad outcome.
Right. Closed. It opened with, let's get on the snowmobile in the middle of summer. You add alcohol, no helmet. I think we're done here.
Yeah.
Right. Let's close this baby up. We're good to go. But no.
I mean, it's a tragedy. It's sad.
Yeah, but we think we can close this one up, kids. We're
yeah.
If there's anything such as an obvious investigation, this one's it right here. But no. Let's keep looking. Maybe he hit a rock. That could have been it. God. All right. Well, Jess, this coming weekend, I have a baby shower to attend.
Fun.
Yeah, my nephew and niece, they're not brother and sister, but my nephew and his wife, I have to clarify here. My nephew and his wife, they're expecting. There's a co-ed baby shower. I'm going to the co-ed baby shower. I don't know what to expect. I haven't been to a lot of baby showers in my life. I do know this much. I'm hoping, unlike this next story, that it doesn't turn violent. Have you been to a lot of violent baby showers, Jess?
No, not a single one.
I haven't either. But according to this story, baby shower turns violent when suspect mows down another woman after an argument.
Like with a car?
We're going to get there. I want to let this one unfold a little naturally. I'm thinking, okay, what things happen at a baby shower that could turn violent? This for 500, Alex. What, I mean, is it the string game? Is that where you measure the mother's belly circumference? Could that turn violent? Is it a numbers game?
I can't think of any reason why you'd want to mow someone down at a baby shower. What on earth?
Is it you got the expensive stroller I was going to get and now you need to go? Is it that deal?
Could it be like a mom and a stepmom who have to be at the same baby shower and they hate each other? I could see that.
Yeah, that could be. Well, let's find out. A woman is accused of running over people after an argument at a baby shower. We're going to Maryland. 54-year-old Robin Lissette Alexander of Indian Head, Maryland, was charged with 8 counts of aggravated assault and 2 counts of destruction of property in connection to the incident. Around 5 p.m. on June 1st, officers with the Charles County Sheriff's Office in Maryland responded to a business for a report of people hit by a car. Investigators say Alexander was attending a baby shower and got into an argument with another woman. That disagreement spilled out to the parking lot, where Alexander got in her car and drove at the woman and 2 others, according to authorities. Alexander hit the woman and 1 other person. She then drove into a parked car. That's a bad ending, I'll tell you that.
Wow.
A juvenile was in the parked car and was not injured. So there was someone in that parked car.
Come on, lady.
Right. Alexander then circled the lot and rammed the car of the woman she was arguing with. So we got him.
Wow, she's just lost her mind.
Yep. There was no word on what the argument was over or if there was a previous relationship between Alexander and the woman. Several people tried to stop Alexander and disabled her car by slashing the tires.
Who are these people?
I don't know, but Jerry Springer is turning over in his grave wanting the story. I know that much. There you go. That was a long way.
That's not my first thought when someone's doing something like that. Like, call 911. But I'm not like, hey, I know, slash your tires. I got a pocket knife. Let's go.
Yeah, we got to detain her. How do we stop her? Slash the tires.
Oh my goodness.
It's either that or ram her vehicle and stop her. I mean, how do you stop her?
Yeah. You just get out of the way.
Well, that's what you're thinking. Other people are like, let's take action. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Police announced Alexander's arrest this week. She was released from custody on electronic monitoring. She's that violent, and you're like, you know what? We can trust her to stay home. We'll just put a bracelet on her. She won't do any harm.
She's fine. She just had a bad day.
Yeah. She just, she's just feeling a little owly. The Independent is, you don't want to know about the Independent. Anyways, here's a picture of her right here. There she is.
I mean, she looks perfectly normal.
She looks subdued, doesn't she?
Yeah. I'd be like,
she looks like
should be at home knitting a sweater or something.
She looks like she needs a nap. I mean, she
doesn't look violent, like she's going to go on a rampage.
No, she looks like she's exhausted from all that running over. Right? But
just take a lot out of you, Tim.
It does. Yeah. I mean, when you're running over people, especially hitting innocent juveniles in a parked car, but
wild.
But I hope But the baby shower I go to is going to be a little less violent than that. But just in case, I'm bringing my switchblade in case I need to disable a car.
You just really better. Yep.
Yeah.
Be prepared.
I'm going to be. There you go. This next one was sent to me. Okay, so I don't remember if it's Raul or Matt. Again, I'm getting them mixed up in my head, but forgive me. It was a long weekend. Either Raul or Matt sent me this next story. And it kind of ties in a little bit to the paranormal as well. A man is arrested for a robbery and claims the victim was a werewolf.
Obviously.
Well, you know, whenever you're going to steal, try to steal from a werewolf. What are you going to steal from a werewolf? We go to Salt Lake City. Let's find out together, shall we? A man was booked into Salt Lake County jail Saturday after police say he assaulted a victim, claiming they were a werewolf. 24-year-old Jose Manuel Perez was booked on one felony count of aggravated robbery. Booking documents filed by Salt Lake City police state the investigation began around 2:15 p.m. after they received multiple calls reporting an assault in progress at a business where Perez and the victim were getting lunch. So he was having lunch with a werewolf. That's kind of like werewolves in London where they're having lunch in a Chinese restaurant, or weren't they having dinner in a Chinese restaurant in werewolves?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Down in Soho. See, I kind of remember the lyrics, but not really. The documents do not state the exact location where this occurred. Again, it's probably a Chinese restaurant somewhere in Salt Lake City.
Obviously.
Ooh. Werewolves of Salt Lake. The victim attempted to flee multiple times, but Perez kept them restrained in a chokehold. He then pulled out a wooden stake with a nail in it, Jess.
Stop it.
He did. And then told the victim they were a werewolf and that he was going to pierce their heart.
What is happening? He just had a stake in his pocket. Like, he came prepared for this.
It was either that or bring his own utensils to lunch.
Wow.
And if you got to choose between that and bring a steak with a nail in it, you got to be prepared for werewolves. I'm sorry. When you invite a werewolf to lunch, you got to be prepared. Right?
I guess.
Yeah. Fortunately, the victim was able to escape, but Perez ran off with their backpack. Why would you take a werewolf's backpack, Jess?
There's so many questions that begin with why in this story, Tim.
I got it. Because is it werewolves that have a thing with silver?
Yeah, silver bullets.
Maybe they've been collecting the silver bullets that have been trying to be used against them, and you think there's a bunch of silver in the backpack you can take and cash it in and get rich.
That could be.
That's why you take his backpack.
Or maybe you just smoked some really bad crack and you have no idea what's happening anymore.
There's no off position in the genius switch. Yeah, he took the backpack, which officers later found in his possession after taking him into custody. Police also found several rocks in Perez's pocket. I think Jess was close on this deal. He told police he carried them out of fear the victim was going to attack him. Oh, they're actual rocks, not crack rocks, but they're actual rocks to throw at the werewolf. He then admitted to stealing the backpack, but argued that since officers got it back to the victim, he couldn't be charged with robbery because, after all, you gave him back the backpack. I didn't steal it. I just borrowed it.
I don't think that's how that works, but okay.
Yep. Perez is currently being held without bail. Oh, it just keeps getting better. All right. This next story is a confusing one. You know, you've gotten those emails where there's a prince in Ghana who has a major fortune for you. All you have to do is just send him the money.
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's an English teenager who his parents really didn't like him. And they tried to trick him into moving to Ghana. Maybe with the idea that prince was waiting for him and maybe had that fortune for him. I have no idea. But this English teenager sued his parents for tricking him into moving to Ghana.
Who does that?
And evidently some parents who don't want to be parents. Let's find out, shall we? It's an interesting little story. This boy, this little English boy, is just 14 years old. And he recently won a legal battle against his parents. Again, some people just do not deserve to be parents.
14?
He's 14. He recently won a legal battle against his parents, whom he accuses of tricking him into flying to Ghana and then preventing him from returning home. You can't make it up.
You really can't.
The unnamed teen and his lawyers told a London court of appeal that in March of 2014, he was tricked by his parents into flying to Ghana under the pretext of visiting a sick relative, only to be enrolled at a boarding school in the African country. Despite the 14-year-old's best efforts to return to his home country, he was prevented from doing so by his parents. So he found some lawyers and took them to court. And it wasn't the people's court. Initially, the High Court in London ruled in favor of the parents, who claimed to have had the boy's best interest in mind when they shipped him to Ghana under false pretenses. But a court of appeal recently revoked that verdict and sided with the teen, considering that his freedom of choice had been infringed. So somewhere there was a crazy judge who said, you know what? Nah, keep him in boarding school.
What?
Somewhere there was a court of appeal that said, you all are crazy. Let the kid come home.
Yeah, but then would you even want to go home? That's terrible.
I wouldn't.
Your parents are so mean.
I'd go find new parents.
Yeah.
In the original judgment, High Court Judge Mr. Justice Hayden claimed that the parents' decision to trick him into flying to Ghana was determined by their deep, obvious, and unconditional love, as he would have been at the risk of suffering greater harm by staying in London. The parents' lawyers told the court that the teenage boy had developed an interest in local gang culture and exhibited an unhealthy interest in knives. I don't know that. Knives? Really? The parents found themselves in a wholly invidious decision. This is a quote. When they made the decision they made, the parents' lawyers told the court, Ghana provided a safe haven, separate from those who exposed him to risk. The least harmful option is for him to remain in Ghana. Really? In Ghana, of all places?
I mean, I don't know anything about Ghana, so I can't say if that's a good place or a bad place to be, but it sounds crazy.
There's some really dangerous places in Ghana.
Yeah, it's pretty third world, right?
Yeah, it's not, that's not the safest place to be sending.
I didn't even know they had boarding schools in Ghana.
I guess they do. In light of the evidence regarding the boy's miserable condition in Ghana, the London Court of Appeal recently overturned the original verdict. He reportedly told the court that he felt like he was living in hell, could barely understand what was going on at the African boarding school, and was mocked by his peers there. He is culturally displaced and alienated. Deidre Fattrell, KC, the teen's lawyer, said he considers himself abandoned by his family. He feels he is a British boy, a London boy. The 14-year-old English boy remains in Ghana, but his lawyers are hopeful that the Court of Appeal's verdict is a massive step in the right direction and will soon allow him to return to London. The case is expected to have a massive impact on international family law. Interesting story.
Just wild.
Yeah. So all you American kids who are a little too spoiled, just beware. You could be living in England and you could be shipped off to Ghana at any time.
I'm going to be using that when my kids don't clean their room.
There you go. If they don't clean their room, they're going to Ghana. Yeah, absolutely. Just be careful, kids. You're going to Ghana. This next one, if it didn't scare American kids, will scare the rest of us. This one was sent to me, again, by one of our listeners. I think this was sent to me by Tony, if I remember right. Tony sent this one to me. A New York City woman found a phone buried in her lawn. And I'm going to show you this picture, Jess. This is what it looks like when a burglar buries a phone in your lawn, just so you recognize it if you see it.
He was kind of lazy. He didn't really bury it all the way.
Well, I'll tell you why it was buried that way. This is the new trend, okay? The reason it's buried this way, and get ready for the chilling way and why it's buried this way, is it's a new tactic used to spy on homeowners.
Interesting.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
A Queens woman found what looked like a phone buried in her front lawn, but it wasn't just lost property. Mary Kehoe, who lives in her Forest Hill home in New York for 35 years, spotted the strange device outside, and it looked like an Android phone wrapped in black tape with only the camera exposed, like it was made to watch and not call. Are you getting the idea of why it's sitting there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Tricky.
Yeah. Why us? I had lots of things going on through my head or going through my head as to why they chose our lawn, but realized we were in the middle of the block, Kehoe told KTVZ 21. Experts warn that these kinds of planted devices may be part of a growing tactic used by burglars to spy on homeowners, track their daily routines, or scouting for valuables. And it's not just an isolated case. Similar incidents have started up and popped up across the tri-state area. And it says, here's how to identify these devices and what to do if they show up in your yard. Discovering a hidden device on your lawn isn't just unsettling, it's a serious breach of privacy, and unfortunately, it's happening more often. Police say covert surveillance cases just like this are turning up across the country, including in California, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and even quiet neighborhoods like Scarsdale, New York. And the tools being used aren't high-tech spy gadgets. It could be any type of camera that is digital and wireless. It could be cheap. It could be expensive. Sergeant Vahi Abrahamian of the Glendale Police Department told the Los Angeles Times, you can go to Amazon or you can go to Best Buy to get one. That's exactly what happened in Garden Grove, where a resident discovered a camera hidden in a neighbor's bush, aimed directly at her home. According to KTLA, the neighbor initially thought it was trash, but inside the bag was a camera and a battery pack. With these surveillance tactics on the rise, there are steps you can take to protect yourself and your neighborhood. Put your alarms on, put lights on, and be aware. And we're a nice little block here that we look out for one another. So when people do go away, they let us know. So we can take a walk down their driveway and make sure everything is safe. Kehoe said, we are now watching. So in other words, when someone goes away, the other people can watch out for their property and so on.
Oh,
It was
right.
kind of a confusing sentence. In Kehoe's Forest Hill community, neighbors are banding together, keeping a closer eye on their lawn, shrubs, and anything that seems out of place. Police recommend trimming hedges to eliminate hiding spots, installing motion detecting lights, and staying alert for camouflage devices that could be stashed in your yard. Burglars may also drive through a neighborhood or pose as salespeople to scout homes or monitor routines. If something seems off, even a strange light or an out-of-place item in your yard, don't ignore it. Report it to your local authorities right away. Interesting. Cameras placed in odd places in your yard just to keep surveillance.
Kind of figure there's cameras everywhere anyways, because all of my neighbors have like security cameras or their Ring doorbell.
Yeah.
Like I'm always being surveilled. Like Winston, one of our dogs got out.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Saturday? Must have been. Oh no, it was Father's Day morning, and I got up and he escaped. And I was running up and down the street screaming, and I came back and I'm like, all my neighbors have a crazy woman on their Ring doorbell cameras or their security cameras right now because in my pajamas, I'm just running, screaming. Always surveilled, Tim.
I'm surprised with all the cameras that a neighbor didn't say, "Oh, well, let me look at my camera footage and see if he ran by."
Yeah. Yeah, he was making a great escape. He was running through the backyards. And all of our neighbors have cameras in their backyards. We don't have one in our backyard right now, but I figure if anything happens in the backyard, I can look at one of the neighbors.
Well, what's funny is, okay, with the backyard cameras, they all have motion detection on them, and
Yeah.
if you would have went through the backyard, you would have thought that they would have said, "Oh yeah, I got an alert at such and such a time."
Yeah, there he is.
And it would have been,
Luckily, he came home.
oh well, that's good. There you go. Right?
Yeah.
It's I hate to bring it back to this weekend, but that piece of shit shot the dog too.
He did?
Yeah, Gilbert. Yeah, Melissa's dog,
Oh.
Gilbert. That's the other thing that gets me. There was no animal cruelty charge. That was added. Yeah. I hate to bring it around.
No, it's okay. I mean, it was such a surreal situation, and it just really, I mean, even I didn't know her. I knew that you and intern Yoko knew her, and
Yeah.
my niece worked with her at the Capitol.
Yeah.
I know she was really sad. And like you said, my niece works on the other side of the aisle. Like she works for the Republican side.
Yep.
Everyone loved her, you
Yeah.
know. But even for me, not knowing her, it just felt like a gut punch
And
for everyone.
Melissa trained specialty dogs as well. So it just, to me, it just it hit me in so many different ways.
Yeah.
That's why I just, there's just an anger here. Sorry. I just,
And
so
no,
yeah.
you have a right to feel that anger. I
Yeah.
think people that didn't even know her feel that anger because it's a violation of all of us.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, as far as the camera goes, it just, I would, I'm setting up more. By the way, I'm setting up more cameras. I'm setting up a camera in the garage so I can keep track of Snowball.
Yeah, I mean, and to that point, like there were so many cameras, like that's how they kind of got the guy. They knew the cowboy hat he was wearing. They found it on the side of the road. Like you can't get away with anything anymore, people. There's cameras everywhere.
Well, and to add to that, one of the charges that the feds came up with. Now, this is interesting, Jess, to kind of add to that, to kind of compound on that. There's an how did they put it? It's a federal charge for stalking. There's a federal stalking charge, but there's also a federal internet charge for him for stalking. So they've tied not only the camera stuff, but they've tied the internet stalking charge to it too. So the feds are using in a capital murder charge. They're also tying internet charges for stalking in there. And they're using things like cameras in the internet to reach out federally and tag federal charges to a murder charge. So is it a reach or is it appropriate? Right? Because they're saying by using the internet, by using cameras, by using these different tools, and you may say, well, cameras, how can you use a camera and make it a federal charge? You're using the national airwaves. You're using the airways, which is regulated by the FCC. So that's a federal charge. Every time you use a camera, so like a Ring camera, and you use footage to stalk somebody, to get surveillance on someone, like this guy did, the Hortmans and the Hoffmans, you've now violated a federal law. So they tack that on. Anytime you use the internet to gain information, to stalk somebody, to use it in the commission of a crime, you've now committed a federal law, or you've broken federal law. And they use that to compound charges on this guy in the commission of a crime against the Hoffmans and the Hortmans.
Yeah, well, throw all the books at him, I say.
Yeah. So, but again, for those of you who may be in the audience, I don't think there are very many in the audience who are thinking about committing a crime, but who are interested in this sort of thing, that these are new charges. These are new things that, as technology grows, these are new charges that are compounding with the commission of these crimes. So, new stuff, right? It's interesting. It's interesting how the more technology grows, the more that it's being abused for crimes, the more charges are growing. The more that the more criminal charges are being found. So it doesn't pay to abuse the technology because they're finding ways to charge you for it. So interesting stuff. We're at the time for Not Safe for Work, Jess. Are you buckled in? Are you strapped in? Are you ready for this?
Always ready, Tim. Cautiously ready.
You may have to buckle in and strap in for this first story. We'll tell you, first of all, you got to get the boss out of the room. So you probably have to lock him in his office. You got to get the kids out of the room, give them earphones or earmuffs and put them in front of Coco Melon. Because we're going to do this here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. We're going to Pittsburgh. And when I say you got to strap yourself in, I'm literally telling you strap yourself in, especially if you're sitting on the toilet at a Pittsburgh casino.
You make seatbelts for those?
Bring your own.
Okay.
It's a BYOSB, if you know what I mean. Yeah. A Blair County man has allegedly blown up a toilet at a Pittsburgh casino. That's right. You heard me. A Blair County man is facing charges after he allegedly blew up a toilet at a Pittsburgh casino. Some people never get past third grade.
I mean, yeah, my kids say they're going to go blow up the toilet every time they go to the bathroom, but literally.
It's a charge in the county if they actually do it, Jess. If they actually go up and blow up your toilet, you got to call the sheriff.
Okay, I will.
You tell them that. You blow up my toilet, I'm calling the sheriff's department.
Oh my.
Now I have a story to prove it. According to a report by PennLive.com, 47-year-old Jeremy Hartman, too old to be doing this shit.
Old enough to know better.
That's right. Of Martinsburg was in the Rivers Casino at 5:40 a.m. Sunday. Again, he should be getting breakfast at the buffet at this time. And if he's going to blow up the toilet, it should be after he goes and gets some buffet. Maybe he did, and maybe that's the problem. It was 5:40 a.m. Sunday when he was taken into custody by casino security for trespassing in a closed restaurant and trying to steal bottles of alcohol worth up to $4,000, Jess. What was he stealing?
What could be that expensive? I don't drink top shelf, so I don't even know.
What is that? That's more than a few bottles of Moet. I know that. What is he getting? As officers were taking him to a secure area, he asked to use the restroom and was given permission to use an employee restroom. That's your first mistake. Don't take him to the employee restroom.
No.
Hartman is accused of lighting a commercial-grade firework and putting it in the toilet. The resulting explosion injured a casino employee who was in the restroom, police reported. Oh, no.
Oh, my gosh. And why does he just have a commercial-grade firework with him?
Right?
Who just walks around with one of those in their pockets?
Who didn't frisk the guy when they arrested him?
So many questions.
Right. The worker, by the way, was treated for minor injuries. So while he was in blowing up the toilet, he got blown off the toilet.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. That would be so terrible.
I know, right?
Just minding your own business, trying to do your business, and all of a sudden
he's dropping a deuce, probably playing on his phone, thinking, "Oh, I got 10 minutes left in my break, but I'm going to take 20. I'm gonna drain the time off the clock here, and all of a sudden, boom! And he's never going to poop right again.
Nope. I'd be too afraid to use the bathroom.
Right. But think of the workers' comp he's going to get off this deal.
Oh gosh.
He's going to get lots of severance for this deal. Not severance. I mean, he's going to get workers' comp for this deal.
He's going to come out covered in poop, and he's like, workers' comp.
Well, in a bloody shitter. I mean, he's, yeah.
Ooh.
What do you suppose that ambulance ride is like?
I would hope they would just give me something to knock me out.
They're not. You got to stay alert because, you got to try to stem the bleeding. They don't even give you anything for the pain. I
don't want to think about this one. It's like literally making me uncomfortable.
You're uncomfortable. Think of the poor guy who's riding to the hospital.
Oh my goodness.
So what were you doing? Oh, sitting around on my break. All of a sudden, hell came for me through the toilet. There's that. When police found Hartman's vehicle in the casino garage, they discovered more fireworks and called the bomb squad and a canine unit to conduct sweeps of the garage and casino. No additional explosives were discovered, according to police. Hartman was arraigned Sunday morning on 2 felony charges of arson, endangering persons, single felony charges of theft, receiving stolen property, and risking a catastrophe and misdemeanor charges of recklessly endangering another person in criminal mischief. He was unable to post how much bail, Jess, on this whole deal. We'll play this game real quick.
I'm so bad at this game. I feel like it needs to be a few $1,000s. So
Sure.
I'm gonna go with like $5,000 bail.
Let's go a little higher.
Okay, a little higher or a lot higher?
A lot higher.
Okay. More than 10,000?
Yes, one more time.
Okay. 30,000.
You're close.
Yeah?
$25,000 bail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. That's fair. Because I feel like sometimes, like people do terrible things and they're like $1,000 bond. Like, what?
Yeah, no. You blew up somebody's bunghole. You need to pay a little bit of money here.
I suppose everyone's like feeling that pain.
Oh, yeah. He was remanded to the Allegheny County Jail. His preliminary hearing was actually is set for today. So, yeah. We don't have an update, however, on how that went down. We can tell you what did go down at a particular strip club in Clearwater. For our next story, we can tell you that there still was no sex in the champagne room. That's what's going down in Clearwater, Florida. We go to Clearwater, Florida, where cops say that a 21-year-old Saudi national called 911 over service denial. Yeah, evidently he thought he was getting a little bit more than what he bargained for when he went to the champagne room.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
He thought he was getting sex that he paid for?
Yeah. Let me show you a picture of him right here. Here he is.
Okay.
Yep. Evidently, he didn't realize he was going to get a trip to another room when he called the police either. Let's find out.
Yeah, well, I'm going to complain about not getting my sexual service when I'm soliciting a prostitute. Like, that's illegal,
Oh, no,
buddy.
they're dancers. They're not.
Oh,
he was at a strip club.
Well, I know, but if they're performing sex acts, then they're both, right?
Well, but they don't do that stuff at the strip club.
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah. They're dancers. They're not, they're not ladies of the evening. Although this 21-year-old Saudi Arabian man didn't realize this. He called 911 early yesterday to complain that he paid $300 for a private room at a strip club and requested sex from a staff member, but was denied said acts. That according to a Florida police report.
Okay.
He thought, well, $300, we should get a little, in there, and it didn't happen.
Oh, you just get a private dance.
Yeah, you get a private dance, right? Investigators say that, I want to get this right, the name right. It is Sultan Al-Nofi, called police around 1 a.m. on Sunday with his tale of woe regarding his evening at the Oz Gentlemen's Club in Clearwater. Poor Sultan. Al-Nofi told a police operator that the club security took $300 from him. Al-Nofi was still on the line when cops made contact with the perturbed patron. Al-Nofi told Deputy Chase Fales, yes, that's his name, Deputy Fales, F-A-I-L-S, Fales, that he paid an employee at the location $300 for sex. However, he did not receive said services. That's a direct quote. I did not receive said services. That's very proper. Which prompted him to dial 911, seeking redress. Not undress, but redress. Strip club personnel told police that Al-Nofi obtained his private room and requested sex from a staff member. When that request was rebuffed, the defendant called 911 for assistance. Al-Nofi was intoxicated, smelled of booze, and was slurring his words when questioned by police, and apparently was unfamiliar with Chris Rock's Champagne Room Reflections. You ever heard that song before?
I have not.
No sex in the champagne room. It's a very funny song. arrested for misuse of the 911 system, a misdemeanor, which, yes, you can get arrested for that. El Nofi was booked into the county jail. He was released from custody last night after his $500 cash bail was posted by a man who works as an instructor at a Miami area flight school. Well, that doesn't make us nervous. 911, anybody?
Oh, my.
Court and jail records do not list El Nofi's occupation or whether he's a student. El Nofi turned 21 a week before visiting the magical land of Oz. So there you go.
Oh, what a dummy.
Yes, Sultan, there is no sex in the champagne room. We all know that. Go look it up on YouTube, Sultan.
He knows it now.
Yep, that's right. Are you a big fan of Spam and Vienna sausages, Jess?
No and no.
Okay, well, you definitely won't be after this story. You'll think twice before shopping at Sam's Club for the Spam and the Vienna sausages. And if you are out there in Radio Land, you won't be after this story, especially when you're rolling your cart down the aisle at Sam's Club. If you're ready for this, Jess.
Lay it on me.
We're staying in Florida. I'm going to show you a picture of this Sam's Club member who looks like he could be Sammy Hagar's father. There he is right there.
Okay.
There he is. He kind of looks like he eats Spam and Vienna sausages straight out of the can.
It looks like he just woke up from a nap.
He does, yeah. It looks like he's probably had a good nap. A Sam's Club outlet had to destroy more than $10,500 worth of Spam and Vienna sausages.
What did he do, Tim?
After a 70-year-old man urinated on 2 pallets of the canned goods.
Why?
According to Florida police.
Oh, I'm so glad that they destroyed them, though. I mean,
although
can you imagine?
Urine is sterile.
I mean, that's what I told myself when I had it all over my pants at the airport from someone else. It wasn't mine.
What?
We went to the bathroom at the airport when I was heading out to get Ella from California.
Yeah.
And there was a big puddle in the only open stall. So I just went in and I like pulled my pant legs up, but I couldn't keep them up. And then I dropped my phone in it. And then I ended up getting it all over my pant legs. Like I probably, a good 1.5 2 inches of just pee.
Mm.
It was a bad experience.
Yeah.
And we hadn't even left Minneapolis yet. But I came out and I was like, urine is sterile. It's fine.
Yeah. You had to keep telling yourself that, didn't you?
Ugh. Gross. Oh my God. Why did he do that? Did he think he was going to the bathroom?
Well, let's find out.
Okay.
Cops charged that a witness spotted Patrick Mitchell believing himself in an aisle 18 at Sam's Club in Lady Lake in Orlando area town. The witness used her cell phone to take a picture of the defendant and reported the incident to store employees. Now that's smart thinking. Just snap a picture off real quick of this guy whizzing on the Vienna sausages. Sam's Club managers reviewed surveillance footage and spotted a man walking up to the pallets and placing both hands in front of him below the belt line. Well, he's a proud soldier, isn't he? Both hands. And stood there for several seconds, reported Detective Ronnie Williams. Behavior consistent with urination, as it was filed in the official report.
Oh my.
Yeah. Upon inspecting the area, workers confirmed that there was urine on 2 pallets containing about 188 bulk units of Vienna sausages and 345 units of 8-count canned Spam Classic. That's official. The merchandise had been contaminated with bodily fluids, requiring them to be discarded, the affidavit noted. The combined value of the products was $10,584.54, according to cops. Investigators charged that after Mitchell urinated on the canned goods, he was recorded strolling around the snack section and sitting on patio furniture for about 10 minutes. He then, Jess, walked to register number 2 and paid for his items and left the store. He was very laissez-faire about the entire deal.
It was just like another day.
Oh yeah, yeah.
No big deal.
We just go to we go to Sam's Club. We get a few samples. We get a few items. We take a whiz on the Vienna sausages, and then we head out.
I was just at Costco. I didn't even think of doing that.
Well, maybe you want to try it someday.
I'll try to keep that in mind next time we go.
Yeah. Because giant pallets of any consumable meats is a great place when you have to relieve yourself.
I mean, really, such a choice.
It is. Think about it. Records from Sam's Club member portal identified Mitchell as the suspect, since all customers have to provide their membership card to a cashier prior to purchasing items while at a point of sale. Additionally, a comparison of Mitchell's driver's license photo with the image taken by the female witness, hopefully it was above the belt, resulted as a positive identification, cops report.
Drop your pants. We need to see if this is you.
That's right. We need to line it up, if you will. We need to make sure.
You need two hands for that or one?
That's right. Sir, we need to just make sure. Would you just drop your pants and grab it with both hands? We want to make sure that this lines up properly. We can make a positive ID on this deal. Mitchell was subsequently arrested for disorderly conduct and criminal mischief. The latter count is considered a felony since the alleged damage exceeded $1,000. Mitchell, who pleaded not guilty to the charges, is free on $3,000 bond in advance of his June 30th arraignment. Mitchell was busted at his home in the Villages, which is one of two properties that he owns with his wife in the retirement community. So he's got cash and decided just to piss on a couple of pallets anyways.
No, he was not in his right mind.
By the way, Jess, the Villages is dubbed Florida's friendliest hometown, which it isn't too friendly to be pissing on pallets of meat.
No.
No.
That's really bad manners.
It is. He previously resided in New York, where he sold his Long Island home in December of 2022 for $620,000.
Oh, that's a good price.
So he had enough to purchase the pallets of meat before he pissed on them. Mitchell's arrest was first reported by villagesnews.com, the premier source of coverages of the Villages and its environs. So they knew it first. So
crazy.
Yeah. All right. With that particular PP story, you probably need a palate, not only a palate cleanser, but a palate cleanser. See what I did there? A palate cleanser and a palate cleanser.
Two pallets for the price of one.
We need to clean off the palate, and we need to have a palate cleanser. See what I did there?
Keyed on the palate. Now we need to cleanse the palate.
That's right. So with that, this palate cleanser, the first palate cleanser is going to be a little cheeky. The second palate cleanser is going to be a little cheeky. You'll see what I mean when I read them both. And we're still in not safe for work territory. You'll see what I mean.
Okay.
All right. The first palate cleanser goes like this. They'll be saddle sore in the morning.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah. Well, it turns out that naked cyclists take to London streets to protest against car culture. Yes, it was Naked Cyclist Day in London.
Why?
Well, it was a naked cycle race. I have a shot from the waist up for you to see. there they are.
Oh my gosh. That can't be good for, I mean, that's a lot of dudes naked cycling. I think it would be less problematic for a woman.
Right.
But for a guy with no pants, and my husband is a cyclist, and he has like special pants for cycling so that they're cushioned and they're more comfortable.
Right.
Right? These guys are just freeballing it on their bikes.
You're telling me?
Like you could really injure yourself.
Yeah. Well, and there might even be a couple of guys that are going sand seats. Just saying, you never know. You never know. Thousands of cyclists ditched their clothes and hopped on their bikes to cycle across London. The annual World Naked Bike Ride is a peaceful protest against car culture and oil dependency. Participants are encouraged to be as bare as you dare in an effort to also celebrate body positivity. The traffic stopping stunt began right after the Trooping of the Color celebrations, but police asked for no nudity at Wellington Arch before 2 p.m. And there's a good reason for that, Jess. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
The naked cyclists were encouraged to wear shoes and adorn themselves in colorful body paint. It was the 21st event held in London, and the sunny weather ensured a buzzing atmosphere. There's a reason why they were supposed to be, let's just say, well adorned in body paint. They had to be proper when they came across King Charles. They were supposed to. They weren't.
They were going to cycle past King Charles?
Yes, and they weren't supposed to be naked in front of the king.
What the heck?
You can't be naked in front of your king.
No, he doesn't want to see that. He's a proper gentleman.
That's right. This year's event had 8 different starting points, which merged together at Westminster Bridge. Riders were able to choose from leisurely routes to more challenging ones, depending on how daring they were. At the end of the protest, cyclists had the opportunity to make their way to an after party in Clapham Junction. It was a peaceful protest full of high spirits, but there were likely to be some sore bums in the morning. But yes, they had to stay clothed if they got near King Charles. Police asked them to stay clothed. So,
well,
please be proper near your king.
What a story.
So there's that one. That's your first palate cleanser. Your second palate cleanser, we'll start it off with this little reminder that the Rolling Stones sang the song, and it started off like this. You can't always get what you want, Jess, but if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need. We're going to introduce you there she is, centenarian Gwendolyn. There she is, 102 years old. Isn't she just
Aww. I love her.
Yeah, she's celebrating her birthday, 102 years old. There she is right there, right? Guess what Gwendolyn wants? She only wants one thing for her 102nd birthday. And guess what it is she wants?
A lap dance.
You're so close.
Am I?
Yeah. All Gwendolyn, God bless her soul, wants for her 102nd birthday is a stripper.
Yes! That a girl, Gwendolyn.
See? It's Gwendolyn to a T, and she's one hell of a woman, it says here. That's a quote. At 102 years old, Gwendolyn Griffiths isn't your average centenarian. Far from slowing down, this feisty and spirited woman is proving that age is just a number, and she's certainly not letting it get in her way. Whether it's swearing like a trooper, winding people up, or requesting a stripper for her birthday, yes, you read it correctly. Gwendolyn is a force to be reckoned with. Originally from the small village of, I believe this is Dowlace, Gwendolyn's life has unfolded against a backdrop of some of the 20th century's most pivotal moments. Born just 4 years after World War I, that's right, 4 years after World War I, she has lived through the turmoil of World War II, witnessed the hardships of the Great Depression, and had a front row seat for everything from the space race to the Vietnam War. Gwyneth married her first husband at the age of 18. They were together for 25 years, during which time they had 2 sons. At one point, the family of 4 lived in a small 2-up, 2-down terrace house in the heart of the village that Gwyneth grew up in. They shared this space with 5 other people: Gwyneth's mother, 2 sisters, daughter-in-law, and new grandchild. Peter, Gwyneth's youngest son, described the community as fantastic, but admitted that the house became unfit to live in. Eventually, Gwyneth and her family, along with most of the street, were relocated to the Gurnos estate. This came with a delightful surprise: an indoor toilet, which nobody blew up, thank God. My granny, bless her, thought it was disgusting. Peter laughs. Things were so different back then. When asked what his mother was like growing up, Peter shared that she was very quiet, mild-mannered. She wouldn't say boo to a goose, he said. She always gave me a row about how much I swore. She wouldn't even say the word bloody. It is hard to reconcile this reserved woman with the vibrant, cheeky Gwyneth we know today. After her marriage ended, Gwyneth remarried and moved to Swansea, where she still resides to this day. For the last few years, she's lived in Hawthorne Court Care Home in Sketty. where she's become a much-loved resident. The staff there affectionately call her the queen of the home, citing her mischievous sense of humor and feisty personality. Her son attributes the change of characteristics to dementia, believe it or not, which likely developed nearly 7 years ago. Though she has never officially been diagnosed, it's clear to anyone who knows her that something has shifted. It's funny to see the changes, Peter said. As I said, she wouldn't say bloody growing up, but now you can't get anything out of her that doesn't start with effing this or effing that. However, it's not just the language that's changed. Gwyneth has also developed an appetite for fun and boldness that might surprise those who remember her quieter days. When the manager of Hawthorne, Terry, was asked about Gwyneth's behavior at the care home, she couldn't help but laugh. Well, for her birthday, she asked for a stripper, she said. Terry went on to explain that each of Hawthorne's 22 residents have been invited to make a wish on the care home's wishing tree. Some asked to go to the Liberty Stadium to watch the football, but Gwyneth's request was a little more unusual. She said, "It's my birthday coming up, so I'd like a stripper." Understandably, the staff decided to compromise, arranging a butler in the buff to make an appearance instead. "I can't say I was surprised," Terry chuckled. "It's Gwyneth to a T. She's one hell of a woman." By the way, this was her butler in the buff.
She looks so happy in the background.
Oh, she's smiling from ear to ear.
Oh, I love her.
Understandably, the staff needed a compromise, arranging that butler in the buff. Peter said he couldn't believe it when he heard the news, shaking his head, and he admitted, "When I spoke to her about it, she told me, I hope I get a cheeky pinch of his bum." When it comes to Gwyneth's personality, there's another character that has become a central part of her story in the care home, Dr. John. Terry shared that every Sunday, Gwyneth marries Dr. John, an imaginary figure who has taken on a very real role in her world. "Dr. John is a police doctor," said Peter, bewildered. "We don't know where he came from. She's convinced he's real. I've never met him, but my son, who's a police officer himself, knows all about him." The wedding itself has become a weekly tradition at Hawthorne. Every Saturday, she's got to have her hair done ready for the wedding, and she invites us all, Terry said. She even wears a tiara for it. She's a darling. It's this unrelenting zest for life that defines Gwyneth, even as the years have stacked up. In the face of dementia, health scares, and the challenges with getting older, she continues to keep going, often in ways that no one expects. One example of this is the 5 heart attacks that she's experienced, all within 24 hours. Yes. Around 5 years ago, I had a call from the hospital. She had 3 heart attacks alone in the ambulance, and it didn't look good. We were going on holidays that night. I went up in the afternoon. Then when we were told to leave at midnight, my son went up then. They said that they didn't know what to do because of her age. If they didn't do anything, she would die. If they operate, she could die. I said, "You got to do what you got to do." He phoned after the operation saying he couldn't get over it. She was just like a 16-year-old. She flew through the operation, no problems at all, and was sitting up wanting a cup of tea afterwards. Oh, God bless her. It's not just her resilience that stands out. It's the sheer will to keep going. Even after battling COVID twice, Gwyneth was quick to brush it off as just a cold. "We call her the Duracell Bunny," Peter laughed. "She's just unbelievable. Maybe it's because she just hasn't accepted that she's 102. When she turned 100, she was one of the first people to receive a letter from the king. She just looked at it and said, 'Oh, tell this bastard I'm only 45, so stick the card up his arse.'"
Oh my gosh.
Pretty funny. Just
Really the greatest.
That is. Just recently, Peter tried again to remind his mother about how old she was. When I went to see her the other day, I told her, "Ma'am, you're 101. You're turning 102 soon." And she just said, "No, I'm not. I look at my tits and not a wrinkle." Yeah. As Gwyneth moves through each day, it's clear that she's not simply existing. She's living life on her own terms. And one more picture of her here, Jess. There she is with her butler in the buff.
Living her best life.
Living her best life. So there you go. That is your palate cleanser for today and the end of Dumb Crimes and Stupid Crimes.
That's the best story ever.
There you go. Tell the king to shove it up his arse. I'm only 45. That's the attitude to have.
That's right.
That's right. So that'll do it for True Crime Tuesday for today. We want to remind you that our guest book, Down to the Bone, is available right now and in the description of this program. Go and get it. Jess has her books available. We have a link in the description of this program. Go get them. I think that's it for today, Jess. What do you say?
I think that's a good way to end it, Tim.
There you go. For Jessica Freeburg, I'm Tim Dennis. Join us tomorrow for Supernatural News. We'll both be back for Supernatural News. And then Thursday, I will tease it with this. It is a show that will scare the piss out of you.
Ooh.
And we'll give you just this clue. They found sigils on the bodies of UFO experiencers. A guest who's a longtime friend of ours will be back to tell us about this new evidence and why the alien phenomenon is not what you think. We'll talk about it on Thursday. There you go. All right.
Good one.
See you tomorrow for Supernatural News with myself and Jessica Freeburg. Thank you very much for watching the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday.
For more audio and video archives of True Crime Tuesday, intriguing content, and cool swag, check out darknessradioshow.com. The executive producer of True Crime Tuesday is Troy Palmer. If you enjoyed today's program, be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Be sure to join us tomorrow for Supernatural News with Jessica Freeburg.